Hi everyone, hope everyone's keeping safe while this coronavirus is on. Can't get to the beach at all, so great if you live on the beach you can go for a walk, but it's a few miles for me, so we're not driving there and staying safe. So I thought I'd better get in the shed and actually do something with all the fossils that I've got. So I thought about having a go at rebuilding one of the Heteromorph Ammonites from Speeton. Now these, as you can see, are some of the pieces that I've collected over the last few years of the large heteromorphs from Speeton. Unfortunately, as we can see, the centres always seem to be crushed, and you can see on the videos, you get the larger section, you can see where that section's been crushed anyway, crushed flat on there. But you do get sections of them like that that are solid and really good, and when I have collected them, I have glued them back together where I've got the pieces, but obviously there's no internal pieces, so these are all just about from the same ammonites, and there's another layer in there. So what I thought I'd do is I will try and make one or two complete specimens out of all the pieces. I know that's sort of making a composite one really, but it'll look nice for display, and I'm not trying to sell it, so I'm not defrauding anyone or anything like that, but it's just a shame when you've got all these pieces and you can't do anything with them. I mean, you can see on there, I mean that side's been flat in the clay, but if we look at that side you can see where the spans have been coming off it on there. So what I'm going to have to do on some of these sections, I'll probably have to try, although they're very fractured and you can see in there the black, I was going to try and drill each side and then pin it with a piece of wire and some glue to give it some support. I don't know how it'll go to drilling this. This stuff tends to be, it's more like a bit like a phosphate nodule, and it's very fractured. I don't know if you can see that in there, and very tough. But if I could get, it doesn't have to be a massive hole, it's just so we can put a piece of wire in and it'll just help support the ammonite. You can see the sutures on that part there as well. So first step is to sort through the pieces and get some on the bench and see if we can come up with something that's near enough. I mean, if we end up making up a few pieces with some modelling clay like on these, that's fine. But I'm sure we can do a couple of impressive ammonites. And I've seen Chris has done one. I've done a really nice one which you see on a previous video, but that was just about complete. I didn't manage to extract that. It's the only one I've found that is complete, but we'll just have a go. We'll take some of these out anyway, and we'll see what we can do. So that's the type of thing that we're after. As you can see, the wood looking impressive ammonite. Quite like that one already. I don't know how we'd display it there. Maybe mount it on some type of board, or I noticed Colin from the Facebook page, he set one in a box with some foam. I've not seen it. Well, it was Ammonites actually. It wasn't one of these. I've not seen it completed, but it should look pretty good when he's done it. The foam did bulge out the box slightly around the outside, but once you've cut that back, you can paint that to make it look like matrix. So I think that's possibly something we could look at doing there. I mean, I've seen some really good poison dart frog tank builds and stuff like that where people use expanding foam, and it just looks like rock when they're finished. So that's possibly something we could think of doing, and I think that's just come to me now. I think that might be a good idea. Thanks to Colin for that one. If you've not checked out his videos, check him out. He's on our Facebook page, and I'll try and put a link to his videos on this one if it comes out. But I quite like that already, to be fair. Just could do with a little piece in there, but yeah, that's pretty good. I like that, and I think the box idea is a real good idea. So I apologise if I'm rambling, but we'll see how we get on. Another thing I noticed as well is, I think this end where they seem to go like this on there. I think this is the mouth border on there, and then that'd be the living chamber. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm sure that is the mouth border on them. But I've got quite a few that seem to be like that, and it always seems to be at that end, as you can see. I'm sure I've got some smaller pieces as well for the centre. What Mark gave me a couple of pieces as well, and I'm sure I've collected some, so they're probably in one of the smaller boxes in here, so I'll have to look for those. But this one is probably looking like the best example so far, so I think we're just going to have a look through some of these pieces. Maybe this one will be quite nice, or this one. We'll see. Anyway, we're going to keep going and keep shuffling some pieces around and see how we get on. Right then, so we've had a bit of a play around with the pieces, and this is sort of what we're coming up with so far. Just want to show you these other couple of pieces as well. This section here, I thought it was quite a good infill piece, because as you can see, this part here, this was one ammonite, and you can just make out the sutures on here, and then they're on there as well, so that joins nicely to that. It looks a bit smaller, but when I've cut it and brought it up to the same level, it looks quite good with the diameter. And then that nicely fades into the rib texture on there, which will join to that piece. So I think that is a good piece there. It maybe looks a little bit small, but once I've cut these ends and I've lifted that up to the same level, I think that will fit in fine. Obviously, since the ammonite's been fossilised in the Cretaceous, it's moved, etc. anywhere in the clay, so a little bit of wobble here and there I don't think it's too bad. As you can see, this is a good piece to show you. That's the outer shell on there, so that's like these pieces here. But then if you look where it's been wearing out, you can see all the sutures on the inside. So like on this damaged section there, I'm showing here. So underneath this shell, that's the sutures of the ammonite. I won't be using that part, obviously. And then this one is quite a nice small piece, but it's a different species. If you notice, it's got nodes parallel to the keel on there, so I don't know what that one is, but it was from Speeton. But there is several different types of heteromorph there, and that is a heteromorph ammonite as well, I would think, just by looking at it, the way that internal surface is like that. So that's what we're going to be working on next. The next step is I'm going to look, see if I can find the smaller pieces to that. I think they might be in this drawer here, actually. So let's just have a quick look. Some of the fossils here that we need to go through at some point. Not in there. But here we are. Some really tiny Speeton pieces which I collected, which I'm going to try and use as well. As you can see, I mean, these was very fragile, but we might even be able to go very small on there. So we'll have a look at them anyway. But I think I've got some more. They're all from Speeton in there. Let's just see. I don't think there's any more in here. No, that's it. So I've just got a couple of other places to check, and then the next step is, excuse me for sniffing, I've got a bit of hay fever, is to cut these ends a little bit neater, especially like that one there, so we get a better line up, and maybe that one. So that'll be the next step, and then we'll see how we go from there. Okay, I've had a little look round and I found the other pieces. I knew I had some more pieces. Some of these are off mark, I think, but they're all from Speeton, the same species. So this, unfortunately, look, has been a nodule. So you can actually see there has been one in the nodule there, and look how tiny that goes. That is superb. I wonder if we could incorporate that into that. Unfortunately, it's the wrong way, unless I reverse the ammonite, but that could be really nice. I mean, you can see this. Well, hopefully you can see the size of that. So we've got enough pieces now, definitely, and I think this is the one we're going to work on. I've just had a cup of tea and I've just been thinking about some other ways of doing it. Rather than I'm still going to cut some of these, But rather than mess around trying to drill and wire them, and maybe build something up out of foam, which I just talked about earlier, I was thinking I could make a box frame and set the ammonites in probably clay or possibly some type of plaster or something like that. Then I wouldn't have to drill and support each one individually and glue it together, because it can be a bit of a pain in the bum and take some time to do, as I have done before. So if I could set these in, and then you could set them at the correct height as well, so that one obviously it's a bit shorter than that, or lower, sorry. So but if I push this one into the clay and built the clay up either way, so I think that's definitely something to look at. And then we'll have a square frame like that. I can make it out of some maybe hardwood or something like that and stain it, and then we'll have the ammonite in the middle. So I think definitely that's the way to go. And we've got enough pieces as well in there now, so, and even some tiny ones. I mean, there's possibly some of those come out of here. I mean, they're so small. It's just a shame that I mean, I know that's one of my favourite sayings, but it's just a shame you don't find, or very rare. I mean, I found two, I think. I mean, there's one here as well, but it's very poor. That was in the mud as well. That's a slightly different species, but that's a heteromorph as well from Speeton, and it's gone around there somewhere. But there's just nothing there, and it's so thin. I don't know if you can see that. I mean, it's just squash flat. Look, it's what's that, about 8mm thin. It's just so thin. I did keep it to try and do something with it, but I don't know. It's a shame, but I mean, there's some spans coming out there, if you can see that, but I don't know. Anyway, we'll see. But I think this is definitely something we're going to work on now and see through to the end, especially with this lockdown. We've got time to mess about now and do something, and I've been thinking about doing this for a while, so I think that's the way to go. I was thinking maybe trying to grind that out and make a mouth border, but I think it's a bit close to the spans because the mouth would be more there, and I think it will be better, again, that's so tough, I think it would be better to actually make a mouth border out of modelling clay. I think Chris did that one, isn't it? It looked really good, so I'm sure we could do that. So there we go. So we're going to crack on with this. I'm going to select some more pieces, do a bit of cutting, and then we'll keep coming back to it, and we'll keep you updated. Right then, so we've done a bit more work on the Speeton Heteromorph. Well, if you can call it work, but we've just prepped the ends of the Ammonite to stick it back together. But as you can see, it's very, very, I don't know what you want to call it, friable. It's really tough and cracks very easily, but I have prepped it all so it does fit back together now. Quite decent. I've not done these little bits yet, but everything else is good to go. So the next step is to consolidate and put all this lot back together with glue, which I'm going to do next. And then when I've done that, I have started work on the frame. I'm making like a picture box frame for it. So we've been cracking on with that. Now I've been thinking about various things since we last spoke, foam, air drying clay and stuff like that, and I think foam's too messy, so I won't be using that. I maybe thought about plaster, but it goes off with a chemical reaction, so it'll be too quick. I need that workability so I can set and mess about with it and stuff, which air drying clay would provide me. But being a tight Yorkshireman, obviously it's a bit expensive, and with lockdown it's not the easiest thing to get hold of. So what I maybe might use is a polyfiller or some such like powdered filler like that. If I can get a cheap one, I can mix it up, and then it's pretty stiff and it dries by evaporation as well, so it's got quite a long working life, so I'll be able to set and position these in. But I need to glue these up first and get them made up, so that's the next step. So we'll be getting the glue out next. Right then, so I thought I'd just do a little bit of an update on where we are with the Heteromorph. So we've just done a mouth border there. I didn't want to do loads of sort of restoration to it because it'll detract from the Ammonite, but I just thought I'd finish it off. So that's just some 2-pack epoxy clay, so that sets by chemical reaction, sets quite hard. Didn't texture it too much, just bunged a couple of lines in it, so we'll paint that up to try and match the rest of the Ammonite. and then we've just got the first piece on here which we've glued to there, so it's just set up there to keep its shape, and then we've got these other pieces to come along and be built up slowly. So it'll take a while, but it's worth doing. So we've got our timber and stuff for the box, like a picture frame, so we're going to do that. Then the only other things we need to do is some of these sections in here we're just going to make up with the air drying clay like we did on the other one, and just texture them to fit in just in the gaps. But say the actual restoration will be very minimal really, although it is a composite ammonite and it's the same species, but it is several different ammonites. But hoping for it, it should look good when it's done. So we'll keep filming and we'll keep going along as we do. Right then, so just carrying on with the gluing. As you can see, it's coming together slowly but surely. It's not looking too bad, so just some bits to repair. We're not going to go mad with the repairs, but we're just going to fill these parts in here, such as that. Might actually leave that, might just maybe right in the bottoms there, but I'm not going to make that smooth and put the ribs on, because that's where the shell's worn off. So we're going to keep that, same as this part here. But yeah, it's not looking too bad. You can see it's a decent size. Quite happy with the mouth border, don't look too bad. I've started a bit of work on the box frame as well. So as you can see, just a bit of ply and some PSE. We just mated the corners. I've not primed the centre of it because I thought with whatever filler or whatever I'm using to use on there, I thought we'd get a better key with it being bare timber, because I might put some brackets on so we could wall mount it, but I'm still not 100% certain yet what we're going to do with that. But it's yeah, it looks alright I think really, so we're just going to keep going. Next pieces to glue on are just these 4 small pieces here, which will probably be tomorrow or possibly last thing today, really, we'll see. Then it just needs a good couple of days to go off, and then we'll start hopefully making some repairs on it. I might put these spans back on, but we'll see. Make some repairs, then we need to start looking at putting the base material down and putting the heteromorph on there. But it should look alright I think really. But yeah, the beautiful ammonites. So it's such a shame you can't find the full one, and it will be displayed sort of like that. So that'll be the, as it's displayed that way in the box. So this will be at the bottom, and it'll coil round like that. So there we go. Right then, so we've got all the ammonite glued back together now in the pieces, as you can see. What we've done is we've built some little dams out of modelling clay to hold the super glue in. Although it's thick super glue, it's filling some quite large gaps. You can mix a little bit of cement with it, but you don't want to go too much, because it just makes it brittle. Or even corn flour or something like that's quite good as well, just to thicken that consistency up. But we've filled the last part now. We've put this on there and this part, so we did a little bit of work on there, but that's it now. So now I'm just going to probably leave it for 2 days probably now, just to get some strength in it. This section was pretty good, so up to there, and then this part I've made a sub assembly from this part here, which was in 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So with it being quite delicate, I wanted to glue those together, and I just worked on them, just a little bit of grinding, and on the rear, which you won't see, I've just built some up with some 2-pack epoxy putty, just to give it some strength, because obviously it's quite fine down there. But this is the way it's going to be displayed, so the underneath will be resting in the matrix, so, or whatever I decide to build out of, probably like a filler I would think, but like a poly filler. So that's all we can do now. So just a couple of days now, wait till it goes off, and then we need to start just not replacing, just building up some of these sections. I'm not going to go too mad, because obviously you still want to see the remains of the ammonite, but just a few little bits in there, maybe to consolidate. There's some there, quite a large piece missing on there, and probably around here. And then when that's done, we just need to paint the filler to try and make it match. So I'll do the mouth border and then whatever little bits around here. But we can also use some dust from when we've been sanding other parts of the ammonite, so we've been keeping these. So we'll grind these down a bit further, into dust, and then that's good for colouring the filler. So that's probably what we'll do with that, not actually use paint as such, because you can never actually get it right, and if you're painting something you probably want to paint the full lot and it'll look terrible anyway. So yeah, I'm quite chuffed with it. It's looking pretty good, as you can see. Well, hopefully you can see it's a little bit, the sun's not shining totally in here today, but it's yeah, a good size that. So we've completed the box and we'll put that in. I was thinking about putting some spans back on here. These are the little nodes where the spans were off it, and they're about this long from the ones that I've seen in the rocks, but I might not, because I think it might look too tacky. I'll see, you might come back to that one, but the sort of stop here, this is the last section anyway, this is all one original ammonite, this part, and then they just do fade away and you get to the different type of shell texture, and that is the, as we said before, the sutures underneath the shell itself. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. I'm quite chuffed with that, so we'll just keep building and keep you informed via the video. So as you can see, the rear of the ammonite is quite a poor state. As you can see, obviously there's no details at all. She's just in like the mudstone on there. So all I've done to the back is I've just reinforced it with some air drying clay where there was some sections missing, but we don't need to finish these or do any wet to them or anything like that, because they're going to be on the underside that's not on display. And I've just reinforced some of these joints as well with some more glue, so it's just a case of leaving this now, as I said before, for a couple of days to go off, and then we'll see about making the other sides good, which is a lot better than this side anyway, and then we'll see about mounting it in the frame. So we've glued all the ammonite together now, so we're just making up some of the small parts that are missing, like these parts here. I'm not going to go too mad, but like that one there where the glue is, but I've done a few bits already. There's some on here and a few little pieces, so we're not going to go mad. But what I do for that is I use a 2-pack putty, like modelling filler. This one's milliput, but you can use all sorts of different ones. There you go, that's the one I use. So you mix it together and then it sets by chemical reaction. So, and it's workable with water, so that's quite handy to know as well. So basically what I do is, once it's mixed up, push it into the gaps where I need to be, apply a little bit of water, and then over the top of it I use me dust and the little bits and bobs which have come from this same ammonite in the matrix that it was in. So I'm a big believer that if you try and use things like that, then avoid paint, because you're never going to get a colour match to match this. It's a bit like building a model kit. If you use natural materials in a model kit, because the main part of the model's painted, if you just leave the natural materials that are, because they're the wrong scale and a different size and a different texture, they look really odd. So if you was building a model kit, you need to paint everything. So if you put natural stones in there, etc., you need to paint those as well, so it all blends into one. So the reverse is true, I believe, of prepping and restoring something like an ammonite or any fossil. If I just left the filler, which I had to do on here because obviously it's quite soft, it's thin, but we will apply another thin slurry on the top of that, and then we'll add the powder, which you'll see in a minute. But as I said, I'm a big believer that if you use the natural materials, which you've got from the ammonite or the fossil, it's going to blend in a lot more. And then when these have dried as well, we can brush these off a bit more, and then we'll give it a coat of matte varnish, and that'll help even the texture out on the surface and it'll give it all the same sheen. So that's what we're going to crack on with now. So I'll just mix some putty up, and then we'll just do a little bit on here. And also as well, I might just get a little bit more finer dust. So basically we've got a part of the ammonite there, and we're just going to sandpaper it, and we'll collect the dust in there, and then that's the dust that we're going to use on top of the ammonite. So I'm not going to do every little crack, so like these cracks here, and the ones there, and this one as well, I'm not going to fill those because I don't want it to look too over restored, because if I fill everything and tidy it up too much, it'll just look like I've made one out of clay, something like that, and that's not what we want. Because it is actually, although it's a composite of probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, even 6 or 7 pieces of different ammonite, it is still an original Heteromorph Ammonite from from Speeton. So this was all one section of Ammonite. This part was another one, and then that whole section was that's a piece, that and that one are separate pieces. So as I said, we don't want to go too mad and fill all these in, but let's just definitely want to do that one, look, because it's a glue line and it looks rubbish. So definitely need to do that. I'm going to leave this because this is like the sutures. I might put a piece in there, and I'm definitely going to fill those there, and then that'll probably just be about it. And maybe that little piece in there, that's more just for a bit of stability than actual filling, and that piece there. So let's just get some of this in there then. You can use not scalpels, like modelling tools and stuff like that, but although it's probably not the bestest stuff for your hands, I do prefer using my hands. I mix it up with gloves on, but it's nice to there's a piece there as well. Again, that's more not for restoration, that part in there. I don't know if you can see that, but that's just really a bit of stability. Probably just need to add like a ribbon to that. So what we'll do is we'll just use a screwdriver, put a bit of water on it, and what we're aiming for here is something that's aesthetic. We don't want it to be amazingly correct, because again, and I keep referring to model kits, but I build model kits as well, there'll be faults in it that I can see but other people would never see, and it's knowing when to stop. I think that's an important thing as well, because quite often you can carry on trying to fix something that only you notice, and then it's pointless because it'll end up going wrong, and then everyone would notice it. And once this is dry, we will take the excess off. There we go. Right, so let's see what else we're going to do. So I'll probably just do a little bit right at the bottom of this. Obviously, you want to be using your old paint brushes, not your best paint brushes. You can get different colours of this tool pack as well. I think you can get a super fine white, and you can get greys, which is what I use, just a standard grey. And I also think you can get terracotta and stuff like that, which could be quite useful in some situations. You can also sand this as well and drill into it and stuff, so it's quite good. It sets underwater as well, so you can use it in reef tanks to fix corals and stuff like that. So when that's dry as well, we'll just lightly scrub that with a toothbrush, and then that will just take any parts off that are loose before we give it a coat of varnish. So you get the idea what we're trying to do there. So I'm going to turn the camera off, so I've got two hands, and I'm going to carry on doing this. And then I'll do a little film of it when it's complete. So that's it done for today then. That's all we've done. So we've filled the large voids up, and that's as good as we can do today. And another little tip as well, which I also found, this is the original matrix of the Ammonite underneath, so it's like a mudstone, like a shale. So what you can use as well is a little bit of Portland cement. It's alkaline, and just make sure you don't get it in your eyes and stuff like that. But yeah, you can use a little bit of Portland cement as well. So hopefully we've put a slurry on here on top of that part, and then we've just got our sandpaper and we've just sanded our little bit of rock onto the top of that. So some of that will stick, obviously not all of that, and then just a gentle brush over, or maybe even just a blast with a compressor once it's dry tomorrow, and then I think that'll be it. So then what we need to do then is get like a fossil varnish or something like that. Just basically it's an artist varnish. It's like reversible coating. You just really thin it down, so you can use that as well. So if you use it neat though, it tends to be glossy, so we don't want a glossy finish. But the more you thin it down, the duller it gets. So we'll give it a coat of that once it's dry, and then hopefully that'll help blend it all in, and then we're just about done. Then that's done. Then we've got to have a look at making the base. So we've made the base, and we're just going to mix up a little bit of like powdered filler, like a polyfiller type thing, but I got a cheaper one. But I didn't really want to paint the back of it, because as we said before regarding painting things, it looks a bit naff if you're trying to blend it all in. So what I might do is I might just mix a little bit of polyfiller with some Portland cement, and just to see what type of finish that gives me, I'll just mix a little piece up and I'll just put it on a piece of board to dry outside and just see what it looks like. So we'll mess about first and we'll work something out, because what we don't want to be doing is mixing a load of filler, bunging that on there after the time we spent with the Ammonite, because I think it looks quite good actually. It's a decent size one as well. And then sticking the Ammonite on that and then finding out that we're absolutely stuffed because we've either got to paint it or do something with it and it'll look a mess. So we need to practice a few things first, trying to get something that we're happy with, and then we'll just take it from there. But yeah, I'm quite chuffed with that. Yeah, that looks good, and I'm sure it'll look spot on once it's all mounted up and finished. Okay, so we'll just give the Heteromorph a couple of coats of varnish, give it a slight sheen, and it's where the shell was and the other areas are still dull, which is fine. I think it looks pretty good really. I'm quite happy with that. So it's a decent size. What I have decided to do though is not put it in this frame. I think it's just too big really, the frame, and the Ammonite is quite stable. So let's just see if we can. So we're going to display it. What I'll do is, let me just put it on a stand for you, and I'll just film it. So yeah, so we're going to keep it like that. I'm quite happy with that. Yeah, rare Ammonite from Speeton.